Well, good evening. I am Rajiv Chopra, and for this and the combined video, I will not show you my face. I have used Envato, I have not used Envato, I have used Canva to help me create the slides for this presentation. So I've used a template from Canva, which is an absolutely fantastic tool for creating all sorts of social media assets, including quick videos, presentations, PDF books, or anything. So I have made a few videos in the last couple of weeks explaining how Lightroom works, but I also realized that I did not explain some of the key terms which I use or which we use in photography. I've just said that, but I also realized that I have been using terms like saturation, vibrance, black points, white points, and using tools like curves, which might be a small mystery for some of you. So I am going to talk about the components of color, the difference between vibrance and saturation, black and white points, curves, texture, clarity, and the dehaze slider. I will be quoting from Adobe, and in the description, I will actually also be adding in links for you to click and read further. The essential components of color. The three primary colors in the world of photography are red, green, and blue, because these are the colors that our eyes are sensitive to, and together they make white light. And when you combine these colors like for instance, if you combine red and green or green and blue, you get different colors making up the other colors, which are the secondary color or the tertiary colors, whichever. But when you combine red, green, and blue, you get white light. However, color has a few components. How do you describe color? Now, the basic color wheel, which you see on the left, I got this again from Canva. This has these main colors. So you get red, green, blue. And when you combine these colors, like when you combine red and green in various combinations, you get yellow and orange and stuff like that. All right. So you see the solid colors, the colors as they are. But in this color, this wheel, however, you will see variation. So if I go back, there is no variation in the color in this particular pie. Similarly here, similarly here. And however, here you start to see a variation. You see the colors are darker towards the center, and they become progressively lighter as you go to the edge. And as you go along the circumference, the actual color changes. So the three primary components of color, or the descriptors of color, are hue, saturation, and luminance. Hue represents the actual color, and I have a spelling mistake, which is a tragedy, but that's okay. And to quote Adobe, this is the dominant wavelength that you perceive as color. So in this case, anything as you move along this particular circumference, you'll start to see different hues. This saturation refers to the intensity or the purity of color. And when you remove saturation, you get a grayscale image. In theory, yes, you can desaturate an image and convert it to a black and white image, but that's not the best way to do it. And luminance simply refers to that lightness or the brightness of a color. In the design world, there are a few other terms. So when you mix white with an existing color, you get a lighter shade of that color, and therefore you are adding tint. When you are adding gray to a color, you get tones. And in the world of photo editing, you will come across or will hear the word tone, which may be difficult to understand, but when you adjust the tone, you actually adjust the contrast because you adjust the shades of gray. So tonal contrast is very important when you are doing your editing. And when you add black to a pure color, you add shade. So tint, tone, and shade are used a lot by designers. Tint and shade are not specifically terms that you use in photography. Tone, yes, you will hear the word tone being used a lot. And remember, it's when you add gray to a color, you are adding tone, and therefore, when you change the shade of gray, you get different tones, and this helps to create contrast in an image. So you will really be working a lot on creating tonal contrast when you are editing your photographs. The black and the white point. The white point is the brightest part of an image and might contain some color. It's not always pure white. The black point is the darkest part of an image and might contain some color. It is not always pure black. Now, I did not talk about vibrance. Maybe it's in the next slide, but what happens when you move the vibrance slider, you are actually taking those colors which are not properly saturated and giving them a bit of a boost. And that's all that it is. The clarity slider, the clarity is a type of contrast that only affects your photograph's middle tones. And clarity leaves the lightest lights and the darkest darks alone. So which means it will not affect the white point or the black point. It will only affect those tones which are in the middle, and it creates a kind of a micro contrast. The thing with clarity, however, is that it can make your image look rather punchy. So you have to be a little bit careful when you're using clarity. Don't be over ambitious. I would say a little bit on the fine details. The texture slider, however, works on the medium-sized details. So it enhances the texture of an image without affecting the fine details. So if you're working on clouds, you will use the texture slider and you will not use the clarity slider, because in clouds you don't have too much fine detail, but you have medium-sized details. Similarly, when you want to soften a person's facial texture, you will reduce the texture. If you want to enhance the texture, you will increase the texture. You might increase the texture on a man's face, but reduce the texture on a woman's face. The dehaze slider, when you move this towards the right, you remove atmospheric haze and the photo becomes a bit darker, and you can induce a hazy feel by moving this slider to the left. Curves are powerful, so I'll have to show this to you, and you're going to spend a very long time studying curves. And I will show you the curve rather than reading this out for you, but you can pause the video at this stage and read this definition from Adobe. Okay, so that's the end of this little presentation. This is a nice little quotation, and these are my contact details, and that's my first logo, and that's my second logo. And thank you for listening to this part of the presentation. I will see you in the next part of this presentation as well. Hello again for part 2 of this little video, and I've got 3 images here. The first 2, this one and this one, are from Envato, which is one of the best sources in the market if you want to buy and use digital assets. And this image is a free image from Deposit Photographs, and I thought this is an excellent image to illustrate a few of the other terms that I have in mind. So let's talk about saturation, etc. So I will click this particular slider, which is the color slider. Here we go. And let's see. If I now increase the saturation, look and see what happens to the image. If I double click, it goes back. When I reduce the saturation, I'm taking away color, and I have converted this into a grayscale image. When I move it back, I have actually given it too much punch. What happens when I increase the vibrance? The changes are far more subtle. Again, I've reduced the vibrance, but in contrast with taking away the saturation, there is still some color here. Now look again. I reduce the vibrance to 0. I reduce the saturation to 0. Now let's talk about individual colors. Let's look at the reds. Okay, so if I increase the saturation of the reds, I'm only affecting the reds. Have a look. If I increase the saturation and if I increase the brightness or reduce the brightness, this is how the impact works. Okay, now I can again highlight the reds and I can change the hue, which is the actual color. Okay, so let's select this particular. I'm using the point color now just to highlight only the purple. Hue shift. Only the purple is being affected. I've taken it to a brighter purple. As you can see, this is the original color and this is the final color. If I move it the other way, this is the original and it's become blue. Let's go back. Saturation shift. Almost nothing. So if I increase the saturation and if I make it darker, you can see only this color is being affected. All right. Now let's target maybe the pink. Look carefully. So now if I take it here, and now if I increase the saturation, I've got a kind of a brighter red. If I change the luminance, you have something else again entirely. I'm going to reset these sliders, Let's look at the next image. Somewhat similar. Now here I can change the overall tint of the image and make it more, well, mauvish, make it more greenish. Again, if I increase the saturation, I make it fairly ugly. If I reduce the saturation, I make it a grayscale image. I can increase the vibrance. I can reduce the vibrance. Let's take a point color here. Let's take this color, and again, I change the hue without affecting the other colors. Let's take the yellows. If I change the hue, and now if I increase the saturation, and if I reduce the luminance, as you can see, I have manipulated the color and it is almost green. So you see the magic that you can do by actually working on these sliders. All right. Now let's look at this image. All right. Now I'm going to go to the light and I click the curve. This is the initial state. This point here is the black point or the darkest point of an image. This is the white point or the whitest part of the image. This is the shadows. This is the midtones. This is the lights and the highlights. See, as you can see, shadows, darks, lights, highlights, whites. This is the base and this is the final output. So now if I actually if I use the target adjustment tool, and now this is the darkest part of the image. Have a look here. The darkest part of the image is here, but it's not pure black. This is the whitest part of the image. In this particular case, you do have a bit of, it's white because the screen is white. But if I look at this part, and I want you to keep your eyes on this curve here. As I move this around, I want you to keep your eye on this. I moved it to the darkest part. It's not pure black. Here you have pure black. Let's go back to this image. I think this is the lightest part of the image. And in this case, the lightest part of the image is not pure white. There is some color in it. All right? Look again. This is bright, but there's still some color. It's only in the screen that you have some of this. Now, if I take this point, now if I actually take this lowest point and I move it down, 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 and move this down, look at what's happening here. I'm darkening the dark part of the image. I'm brightening the dark part of the image. Keep your eyes on the lampshade. Brightening, darkening, brightening, darkening. If I'm here at the middle level, again look at the image. I'm actually darkening everything in the middle. I'm brightening everything in the middle. Okay? I don't usually use curves in Lightroom, by the way. If I now take this part of the image up, I'm brightening all the bright parts of the image. So what do you normally do? The classic S curve is to darken this, brighten that, and you have more contrast. Look as I click this. This is before and this is after. Before and after. If I make it more extreme, almost like that, and more extreme, and more extreme, look at what I've done to the image again. Before, after, before, after. So using curves is an absolutely brilliant way to change the contrast of your image. I reset everything, by the way. All right, let me now go into an August thing. So I've shown you the dehaze slider earlier in the past. The images, are they here? No, they're not here. Okay, so I have to go into my blog page. All right, Substack, September, history of Chunar, images, Chunar Raw. All right, here. Let's look at the dehaze slider here. It comes under the effects. I have done some dehazing. I reset it. Now, when I move the dehaze to the left, I'm increasing haze in the sky, in the landscape. When I move it to the right, I'm darkening the image by taking away some of the haze. The clarity, now when I move the clarity slider, focus here. You can see that there's a lot of texture happening here, a lot of change happening here. When I move the texture slider, watch the changes in the water. More texture in the water, less texture. More texture in the water, less texture. Okay? So that's what these various sliders do. And in this particular case, if you want to look at the bright point or the white point, let's go here. There's nothing here which is pure white. The lightest part is still reasonably dark. The darkest part again is not pure black. It's close to pure black, but not pure black. I hope this short demonstration has made these concepts clear to you, and if you have any doubts, get in touch. Send me an email if you want to, or you have my email address in the previous slide, so send me an email if you want to, and well, have fun. See you next time. I will make a short video about Connaught Place before I actually get into Lightroom Classic.